The Meet Magic meetings compared to the other meetings that we have, I have thousands of meetings literally.
And at the end of a 45-minute meeting, I've helped sick kids at the Starlights Children's Hospital, which is my chosen charity.
When you're first meeting someone, you're trying to build a connection. And with Meetings for Good, you just find the connections automatically there.
And when I actually think about what Meet Magic does and the opportunity to spend some time supporting the community of our vendors, but also being able to give back.
And when the opportunity presented itself to join Meet Magic, I jumped at it.
But these ones are different, and the reason they're different is because the vendor wants to meet with you and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is.
All of those meetings blur into one, but Meeting for Good is memorable.
It absolutely makes sense to do this, and I definitely recommend peers to engage with Meet Magic.
Yeah, I'd recommend people to engage with Meet Magic too. It's Thursday, and it's 2:00. Now, for those of you that don't know, this is the Magic Room, and if you want to be a VIP like Tanya on our show, I call it a show, it's bloody LinkedIn Live. I'm going to put a link in the podcast. So basically, the Magic Room is a series. It's an invite-only podcast designed specifically to showcase purpose-driven leaders and change makers. So we're sort of a little bit about upgrading some of them old behaviors because we think that magic is created in the brain psychologically. So that's what Rory Sutherland would say. Anyway, so we're in search of the most distinguished change makers to come and join us on the podcast. And, you know, we want to showcase them, talk about where they come from and their background. And these are the kind of individuals that have come up through the ranks and they're now driven to give back to others. So you'll find a link in the post. It's called the Magic Mind Card. It's a bit of a test, actually. So if you don't pass, you can't come on. It's that simple. It's a short test that Jimmy created to help us basically uncover the distinctive visionary style of business and technology leaders. So today I am very pleased to introduce Tanya Abbey. Why did I say Abbey? I'm thinking about churches in England. So Tanya's the CEO of a recruitment company and is up in Brisbane, and it's International Women's Day tomorrow, and it's my daughter's Maya's 21st birthday. She's half Japanese, half English, born in Australia. She's a true international woman. So with that, I'm going to introduce Abbey. Hi, Abbey.
Tanya.
I'm getting old, Tanya. I swear to God, I've got Abbey on my note here.
Two first names, really.
But Abbey's kind of cool. I'm thinking of churches because I'm so clean in the brain. I'm literally pure, and I think of Abbey, and for some reason I've got Abbey in my head. Sorry, Tanya, that's really bad.
No, that's fine. My dad's English, so it kind of links as well. You know.
Where's he from?
I shouldn't admit this. He always says, "Don't tell anyone." He's like, "I'm from Luton." To be fair, he left when he was 16, so. You know.
Have you seen how good they're doing, though?
I have been there.
No, forget being there. I'm talking about in the football.
Football, yes, I did hear this from one of the guys in the team. They are doing very well.
They, well, look, if Fish is watching, we call him Fish because his name is Salmon. But if he works for one of our clients called CrowdStrike. So if he's watching. He knows all about it because we text each other saying, holy shit, I can't even believe what Luton are doing. So Luton came up into the Premiership this year, right? And they have literally taken it toe-to-toe with the best of them. And some of their players, I reckon a couple of them are going to go to Man United, to be honest, because they're just next level.
I haven't watched the football for years. I'm more NRL. But yes, I believe that. Maybe I should commit now that I know that they're doing well.
Yeah, well, there's a very famous lady there called... she used to say Luton Airport. What was her name? Lorraine Chase. That was it. And when I was growing up in Nottingham, you'd always see Lorraine Chase because everyone took the piss out of it because she had this really Luton accent. It's like, and the phrase was Luton Airport, and so she was like, that's the only reason I know Luton. But anyway, thanks for joining us. This is a little bit of a chat because I originally wanted to do it for C-suites and execs who have sort of come up through the ranks, and I didn't want it to be serious because I wanted it to be about you. and about what got you to where you are rather than anything else. With International Women's Day being here, it really is a great opportunity for us to help inspire other women, right? I'm a single dad of a daughter. She's 21 tomorrow. So Maya, if you're watching, I've sent you nothing. There's no presents coming, so you can just get over it, go to the party. She's up in Brisbane. Is that where you are?
I'm Gold Coast today, but yeah, mainly based on the coast, but Brizzy's not far.
I think she's going there tomorrow because there's a DJ playing. Some dude called Car Park or something. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, Gold Coast. Honestly, for a 21st, it's a good idea for her to be here. Just if she gets in trouble, send her my number and I'll pick her up.
Oh, well, she's been at UQ for 3 years. She's in her 4th year now at uni. So
well done.
I'm really disappointed in her because she left here as a New South Wales lady, and now she's got. I bought her that car, by the way. She's driving around in a shitty old little X1, and it's now got Queensland number plates on it.
Look, my profile, I'm in my Queensland jersey. Don't talk to me about it. Queensland has won more Origin series. Just going to put it out there. I can send this out.
Do you know, I'm English, and I was raised with a Jamaican family. My dad's English, but he married a black woman when I was a baby, and so I grew up with a Jamaican family, and I speak Jamaican, I can rap Jamaican, all that stuff. I cook Jamaican, Perfect. Everything. Yeah.
That's when you should end it, end this podcast, and then stream this rapping. I think that would be.
Man, chuck all them weird there. But the funny thing was, when I was 40, I went back to England, and we went for dinner at this restaurant, and my dad turns around and goes, "Oh, by the way, we're all Irish Catholic gypsies." I'm like, "What?" So you basically just told a 40-year-old Englishman that he's Irish.
My nan was Irish and my granddad was Scottish. My dad's English. That's interesting conversations.
Yeah. So tell us about you, Tanya, because I want to know who you are. I want to know, how did you get to become a CEO? What inspired you growing up? All that sort of stuff.
I don't, so I spent a lot of time, so I mentor for Queensland government. They have an awesome program looking after small business leaders in Queensland, essentially. And I have a lot of conversations with them around, what it takes to be an owner. And really, I don't know if you've read it, there's this book called The E-Myth, talks about the technician being disillusioned in their role, and then they go, you know what, I can do better. They go into a role, rather they go and start a business, and then they realize how difficult it is. So we look at titles, and particularly I've recruited for 17 years, titles, are we CEO, MD, director, owner, founder? And I think the chase of what it takes to be a CEO is continual, right? So for me, I started in recruitment 17 years ago. Prior to that, I did hospo roles, hospitality and retail, and I really wanted to get into an office role, but I hadn't studied. And I remember my first interview with a recruitment agency, and, I was so excited the night before. I bought a suit, because you wore suits back then, and spent a lot of money, getting makeup and everything else. I was so excited. Rang my mum. I was walking across the street to the office. I was early, and then my stockings ripped, and I was like, oh my God, I need to go fix all that. Then I sat in the foyer, and, I was waiting for the interviewer for such a long time. And, I was nervous, and I was thinking about my answers, and then they kind of came in. It was a bit lackluster. And then I went through a series of 4 other interviews. And at that point, I kind of thought, surely there's an opportunity to do this better. And even now, with my guys in the office, we talk about, I guess, when you're talking to candidates or clients, what kind of experience do you want to have? So really, when we look at titles like CEO or MD, I think with that comes a lot of responsibility, not to quote movies, but it's a continual chase to be a good leader, because every day, this week, I haven't committed to any speaking events or lunches tomorrow. I've spent a lot of time really engaging with all business owners, but particularly females. I'm a single mum with 2 little boys. And how do we talk about what it takes to be a really good leader when we have, imposter syndrome and we have all these things. So the progression, I guess, it's ongoing really, but it's really being aligned to your purpose, right? So I was sitting in a meeting the other day and they were like, owners that work over 10 hours a day, it's really unhealthy. I've created a really good balance in the last 6 months, but I don't see work as work.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's funny because one of my lead recruiters, like more recently, has been engaging with a lot of clients at that very senior level and owners. And, he's like, you guys are all really the same. Like we have these crazy ideas and we take risks. And I think, leaning into that and realizing that the risks that you take, they can be a bit scary, but you then build this resilience of how to push through as well. So I don't know, like I think perhaps it's maybe the imposter thing. I don't really see myself as a CEO. Like even with my guys, I work with them. They don't work for me.
It's really interesting, I think, when you think about what CEO actually is. I think you're a chief, and that means you're like heading of a tribe. That's how I think of the word chief. And then when I think of the word executive, I think of the word of holding your posture and being prominent and in that way. And when I think of officer, I think of leading into battle, or leading from the front because you're in the army or you're in the navy or you're as an officer. That's your job. And when you put all that together, it's a pretty powerful role. It's a pretty powerful title because you're a chief, you're an executive, and you're an officer. And I think not everybody understands what it means to do all those three things, because it really is. You're setting the foundations for the company. You're leading your team into battle, if you want to call it battle. But that for me is what a CEO. So did you have anyone that you really looked up to when you were starting out?
I think it was more like a collective of things. Like my brother, he's a clinical psychologist. He's older than me. Biggest hero. Like I looked up to him a lot when I was younger, and he's brilliant. And I think his style of, particularly in his profession where people can get burnt out, there's a really strong element of care and nurturing. My parents, my mum is Filipino Spanish, both of them. I'm first generation Australian. So, they moved here, and I think it's, I think I had a really good standard growing up in terms of what to expect and what to push for. I think in terms of people that have motivated me, like certainly, people in my network, but also like my team motivate me. My friends, a lot of my friends are ex-recruiters or they're still in the industry. And I think when we talk about motivators, they kind of go, who do you look up to? And that's not necessarily a mentor or someone that has been where you want to go. It's the people that I guess inspire you day to day. Like I was talking to a client this morning, and I was saying to her, I look at my kids and they're two little humans that really inspire me, because, I would watch them try and learn to walk, just pull themselves up again, keep going. Like there's a myriad, I think, of different people and things that, inspire me. Like I read a lot. I don't really tend to sit and watch videos of people talking. Like I think a lot of the time I'm really out seeing clients, like the people that I do mentoring with. I learn from people as I go. But even my team, half the time I don't have people from recruitment because I'm so intertwined in the industry that I want a different perspective as well. But no one really in particular. Like I think one of the outstanding people that I read a book from, Sheryl Sandberg, she did the Lean In book.
Yeah.
And initially I thought it was a, really strong, empowering, book to just have women only leading the way, but it wasn't that. It was talking about, if you want a seat at the table, you have to understand that there's dynamics, and, we want to make sure that there's a collaborative approach when, you're prompting or promoting female leadership. I think that, to be a powerful female leader, you need support from both and all. So I would say probably a collective. Like I like that word tribe. I have my own tribe that pushes me every day, but not one particular person. So
I think most of my team's female, and I don't know if it's because I grew up in a house full of females, that I'm
Yeah.
more comfortable around that. But there's something about the diversity of thought and everything else. I don't want to be cliche about all that stuff, but yeah, I think I see where we could all be doing a lot more. People like us. I think male leaders that want to champion some of that change. I see it. It's kind of weird. I often feel like I get pushed aside a lot as well. It's very bizarre as a white male as well. I'm meant to be privileged, and you get excluded from a lot of the female groups, for example.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why that's not inclusive at all. So you're banging on
Yeah.
about inclusivity, but you're actually excluding certain demographics. I just find that a bit odd.
And I think, like I have probably a quite pragmatic stance to it as well. Like I've been in conversations before with people that really are focused on just being solely, female focused. And, I tread lightly here as well. But really for me, a lot of the time, a lot of my clients are male, a lot of my friends are male, until more recently in the last couple of years where there's some really awesome women that work in business and they're mums, and I can relate to them too. And I think, in terms of being inclusive, like, I have some of my male clients call me and they're like, Tan, I want to have this conversation with a female staff member. How do I say it so I don't get in trouble? And I think, I always say to people, if you have to have those conversations, it's kind of going, look, and just prefacing at the beginning, the intention here is to help you grow. Perhaps I will deliver it in a way that it won't be received well, but just know my intention is to support you. But, like even, I think for me, like International Women's Day is not just about, of course, it's the strong women and we support that. And like I have a lot of beautiful women in my network, but me personally, I have a lot of male friends, that have really supported me and helped me grow. And I've been that kind of reference point because for women, we get caught up in, overthinking. And I do envy how men can just be like, yeah, very decisive. So I try and, really absorb that kind of personality too.
Yeah. One of the things I'm pretty proud of raising a child who's 21, who's female, who's half Asian, half English, very Australian, and she's very powerful. She's very strong, and she's very strong because I gave her the power to say yes, and having the power and the bravery to say yes to things has actually got her so far. She's just finished a whole year at University of Queensland. As she was voted, she actually had to put her hand up and say yes, I'll be nominated. She got voted in to be the head of social. She's the social minister. So she had to go and organise all the events and everything else. So that was a massive responsibility you had to run the P&L, the whole thing, run the budgets. You had to go and hire all the event people, run the marketing campaigns, literally everything. But if she'd have never, and this was, she's at King's College, which is an all boys college that's just gone co-ed. And so she's there as one of the first ever female social ministers, and in a role that there's no one to follow. There's no there's no one there that's done it before her. So she can go, okay, give me the roadmap, or and I'll follow that. And so I think one of the things that really inspired me about my own child was the fact that she just had the bravery to say yes. And I think that's just sometimes what you need to do is not think too much, just say yes.
Oh, and I think too, it's confidence, right? Like I was talking to one of my guys this morning around, the internal narrative that you say to yourself, which is something that I, struggle with as well, right? And it's, if you have a really good foundation, you have a support network and you have curiosity, and I'm an opportunist, but not in a bad way. Just I see an opportunity in everything. I think if you can align yourself with people that will help you. But yeah, sometimes it's simply just going, I said this years ago. I was on a speaking panel and I was like, you need to step over yourself when you're in situations. And really, it's okay. Like if you kind of stuff up or you falter, because, it's a learning lesson, right?
Do you want me to just play you a David Goggins clip? Because I'll tell you what he ends with.
Oh, I know. Yes, he's very intense. Look, he's great. I do. I think you have to kind of like, because he's very, direct and everything else. But I think what I think what both men and women can bring is that authenticity, but the vulnerability too. Because I see it with men, like they'll talk to me very openly and be vulnerable, and you know, I kind of go, well, that's valuable if you do that, you know, in a team setting. But I feel for the guys, right? Like, you know, you have to work, you can't say anything, you have to be emotionless, but you're too emotionless, you know, and you know, for women too, we have to be everything as well. But we have adapted, you know, whereas men are now thrust into this world where it's like, you know, women are leaders.
Weak, Tanya. They're becoming weak. They're not allowed to chat you up. They're scared of talking to you and saying, hey, you look great today. What's your name? They're scared of doing that. And I think it's shocking. They're just weak and powerless to go up and say what they really feel. I find it odd. It's just
there's a sense of reservation too, right? Like they don't want to be, you know, exposed to any risk. It's so PC now. You know, it's you know, I started, you know, 17 years ago. There wasn't like a games room or a quiet room or a beer tap or whatever. Like I worked, got in before my boss, left after my boss, so I could, you know, buy, you know, bottles of wine on Friday and drink with my brother, and then on Saturday morning we pretended like we had it together when our parents came over to the unit. Like that was the life, right? And now there's so much complexity even in recruitment. You know, it's very difficult. Like even clients are wanting to get certain type of fit for their company, and what does that look like, and how do you hire for a female but not advertise that? Like there's so much now, and we're being a lot more careful, which I think, like you said, you know, it's creating this element of weakness too, or fear as well.
Yeah, it's a great segue actually, because I'm talking about leadership in recruitment, and some of the things that I think about with the whole Meet Magic thing, and it's kind of interesting. I've been on this journey with Meet Magic for 4 or 5 years now, and you know, we've become this SaaS platform. Execs come on board, they meet with vendors, they get to learn stuff about what's happening in tech, and they also give back at the same time because we give money to charity. And a couple of occasions last year, a couple of execs came to me and said, hey, I've had 5 or 6 of your meetings. They're really good. I'm going for this new job. Do you mind if I say that I can mention Meet Magic in that interview process because it'll look good? Do you see hiring managers, recruiting managers that are looking for, you know, what you're doing outside extracurricular to in terms of giving back?
Yeah, look, I think it's relevant, right? I think I was talking to someone yesterday, and she was like, you know, asking me how to frame interview questions so she could find out what kind of fit this person was. And for us at the beginning of our interview questions, we ask things called icebreakers, and they're super random. Like, you know, they might be like, what's your favorite quote? Would you rather, you know, where would you want to go in the world? Or like they kind of lead you to a really cool conversation about the person. And then through the interview form, there are questions designed to kind of find out that personality. But, you know, if I'm talking to a candidate and I'm trying to find that perfect match for a client, because we don't match PDs to resumes, we actually match the clients to the candidate, I am interested in their external interests, because it might be a client who loves jet skiing and then the candidate's just bought their first jet ski. Like there's a nice, you know, blend there. But I think we ask a lot about, you know, how do you personally develop yourself as well? Because that's important too. If you're hiring someone and you want them to be driven, looking at the external factors of their life, like who's around them, without obviously crossing lines, but, you know, what kind of books do you like to read? What do you do on the weekend? For me, I'm very curious. I always like to find out what people do externally. And there's a nice flow and a way to do that in a really good interview. So yeah, I think definitely mentioning things like that, because it resonates, you know, and it adds to your profile. Like, you know, LinkedIn's been around for such a long time, and I meet awesome people, but then I look at their LinkedIn and they underrepresent themselves. It's wild.
Yeah. Do you see hiring managers actually looking for purpose-driven leaders because it actually makes them look good when they hire them?
I think, look, you know, majority of the clients that I work with are small business or medium business. So they're either in that stage where they're wanting to add that extra layer in a GM, or they're wanting to replace, or they've hired before and then it becomes, you know, they've hired badly. So what hiring managers want, hiring managers and owners are different, but if we say what owners want, they want someone that, because you will never get someone that will love your business as much as you, but they want someone that will get to that, that 80% or can at least align with your vision. So I think if you are an executive leader, you need to be purpose driven, when whatever role you're in, whether it's data entry, whether, you're an aged care support worker, whether you're in a cleaning role, there is an opportunity to find purpose in your role anyway. But I think now, and it's been disappointing this last year or two. I've interviewed a lot of GMs that have had quite terrible experiences when they leave. Obviously, from a company perspective, they want to get them out as soon as possible because it poses risk. But, I said to our client the other day, I was like, he got walked. And I said, well, they kind of like, thanks for your service, but get out. Like there's a way to really do, some change management as well, and how to articulate that. So I think to answer your question, yes, they are looking for it. But if we're talking about, I guess, HR teams, they're not as connected to, I guess, what the CEO wants or what the owner wants. So I still prompt my clients that's in that space, if you've got a hiring manager or a HR manager, you still need to be in those interviews because you created the business or you lead the business.
Yeah. I don't want a HR team at all in my business. I don't want one. When we end up with 500 people, I'll have a lawyer, and that lawyer that'll be it. That'll be the person that is the HR. It's because I think it's quite divisive now. I think there's a lot of companies that have gone down a path of having that, and you see. I mean, you look, for example, at the big companies like Google, and you've now got little groups inside there that are going out on strike.
Yeah, like I've got a really good mate. He's awesome, Tim Dive. He's a recruiter. Like we met years ago in Brisbane at the Big and Whistle one night, like 16, 17 years ago. And he's awesome, and he very much champions small business, right? And he's got his own HR practice, and really, like, I like that version of outsourcing, because and I knew him when he worked as a HR internally as well. They're kind of isolated because they can't get too involved in things. They, at social events, they can't get involved. But if they do get involved, they can get confused with the lines, because HR is there to protect the company, really. That's the ultimate goal. And sometimes it can get a bit confusing. And look, I know some awesome HR managers that really champion the brand. Like, I've got a client, Asha, and she's awesome, but they're very rare. And it's hard. Like, I was talking to a client this morning, and she's like, the way that it's set up is, you see it all the time. Like, a lot of support for employees. And she's like, no one asks about the owners. Like, how are you going? And she's like, there's this perception we sit in an ivory tower, and, we just have like this great time. But it's the headspace that we're in all the time where we're thinking about, our staff, because we actually do. And don't get me wrong, there's terrible owners that are leaders out there, but the people that I deal with, they really suffer alone, particularly in the last, couple of years. So if you can find a purpose-driven leader that understands you, that speaks Tan or speaks Carl, it's a dream.
Tanya, I'm a part of a wonderful group of people, and it's called the CEO Circle.
Yeah.
And Samantha Green is the CEO of the CEO Circle. And if we meet once a quarter, and there's normally 8 to 10 execs in that room that are not able to talk about things inside the office, and they need an outlet, and they come together and they share stuff. And what gets shared brings you to tears pretty much most of the time, because I don't think people realize the pressure that it is at the top of in those roles. And when you're the CEO of a big company, you've got to have that straight face, and you've got to be that leader, and you've got to be that inside your world's collapsing. You've got, I don't know, maybe there's things happening in your personal life, someone's sick or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you've got to be there. Yeah, and it's remarkable that what some of these leaders actually go through or persevere through.
Well, they certainly, like, I spoke to 3 this morning, like they're all going through it, and then it's like being a parent, right? But you're parenting adults that look, and everyone, they have their own lives and agenda and everything else. And I think, the CEOs I deal with know that, but I think they would appreciate like hey, how are you going? Like my guys are so good. They're like, Tan, have you eaten today? I'm like, I don't know. And then they're like giving me food. And like they when you have people that really check in on you, I think that they don't realize how valuable, how much it changes your day.
It's lonely at the top, Tan.
It is. I was told that years ago. I didn't realize, right? And
it's really lonely.
And you're subjected to everything. Like it's hard. You have, like for me as a mum, like, I'm the mum that runs late at school, or I'm the mum, and I have like an awesome, nanny that helps me, and that's taboo to talk about that, right? But I love her. She's amazing. People go, how do you do it? Like everything. Well, you don't, or you try to every day. And then it's, trying to go out and recruit and work with clients and put a really good, face out like all the time when you are stressed.
I want to take my hat off to you because I haven't even got one. I've got a hat I can put on. Because Tanya, you should take a step back and congratulate yourself, because as a single mum with 2 kids, to do what you do, to run a business, to manage everything, to juggle everything, and give me some time. So thank you for giving me some time. But just to be able to do that, that's a remarkable achievement in itself.
Oh, and I think, and thank you, I appreciate that. But and there are so many, right? Like even yourself, like you champion your daughter, but you probably get lonely, like you miss her, like it's all these things, and it's kind of like it's kind of like we just have to get on with it, right? Because we have a response. Like I look at my team and go, I'm responsible for them. You got to lead from the front. And you're so tired, and then and you have COVID, and it's imminent recession, and then people changing jobs, and it's wild, but it's kind of just leaning into it, right? I think I said to the client this morning, I was like, she was talking about how her and her husband are ships in the night now, and I was like, you know what, tonight, go home, say, let's pop to the pub for half an hour. You've got the kids looked after, just sit and have fun, just enjoy the fun. And I think that's the balance that, we have to bring in, because being on all the time is exhausting.
And it will get lonely again in the last chapter of your life, because I'm going to give a shout out here to Tea Time, because Jimmy Leishman and Ed Trick and the team at Tea Time have created something that's helping old people in old age pensioners homes combat loneliness. They're keeping families connected with their technology, something which is happening nowhere else. I mean, you imagine being 85, 90, you've got no mobile phone, you can't use a laptop, and your family's overseas. And how do you stay connected to them? Your little great grandkids just won the 100-meter sprint, but you can't see them. Tea Time bring all of that. I've got goose pimples.
Awesome.
Tea Time bring all that together.
No, because and there's something as well to say about that too, and that's awesome. Like I'll check out Tea Time, but you have all these people, these retirees that are sitting there, and they are lonely and they're bored. Can you imagine? And I talk about this with my dad, he was a chef by trade. Can you imagine bringing some of them into TAFEs and teaching, like one of my clients is a locksmith, like teaching the crafts that are dying now, but also like I'm big on teaching like work etiquette. How do you work? Imagine you have them, you've got all this skill and knowledge sitting there. How do you bring that into the workforce? Because I love hearing stories from people. I think it's great. And I think it's like a time capsule, right? It's understanding what it was like then. And I feel like that's probably what's missing. We don't have the traditional things that we used to. Like if you're late to work now, nothing is said. But I would run from the bus so I wasn't late, Like it's just all these people that sit in retirement homes, they're being wasted all that knowledge.
I think so too. So you're in sales. I love it. I love the fact that recruitment sometimes has a bad name. I think people should just get off it, because it's not. Everyone needs it. So, but salespeople typically, are they bad today?
Look, and I think with recruiters, right, a lot of them are very transactional. Like I'd say 96%, really. Like, and I just because I ask clients, you know, their experience with recruiters, and I'm not afraid to hear the answer because I usually know anyway. I think salespeople, they can be as good as their manager, right? But there's even me on LinkedIn, I get so many messages all the time, and COVID made people really complacent. Like for me, like every fortnight, like myself and Corey, my lead recruiter, will go and see clients. It's the best. Don't send an email or a text. Like, who does that anyway? Go out and see them. So I think that's probably what's lacking, like people being like, you know, do you want to have a coffee? Or I wanted to write this email to ask you, like, did you want to write it, or you actually are writing it? Like there's this grammar thing that's going on. I don't know. So I think salespeople, if they're not connected to what they're selling, and really it's always people.
It's changing so fast, isn't it? I think the way people, I remember I was saying this the other day on another podcast talking with the CIO. When I was in sales, there was no internet, there's no mobile phone. You had a desk phone. Wasn't a ring one, but it was a push button. Yeah. But if you want to go and talk to the CIO of, I don't know, Brambles, they're the people that make.
Go there.
Yeah, well, you'd have to go there and steal the annual report off the coffee table, go home, read it, highlight the things that you were interested in, that you know you can have a conversation with the CIO about, and then you go and you say, hey, John or Mary, I've just been reading the annual report. I think there's a great fit. Can I have a conversation? That was showing that you've actually done some work and put some effort into having a.
Well, it was more strategic, right?
Yeah.
And it was very, like, and I in recruitment, I started desk phone, like Nokia 6110 or whatever it was. And, you know, I would recruit for government, and I would go to every floor in Queensland, like in the Queensland government buildings in the city, and I would write down the numbers because my phone didn't have a camera. So I'd write down the numbers of each person on each level, and I'd call them and be like, hey, I tried to get you. Like there was more hustle then. And now we kind of, you know, and we sit in, you know, behind our computers and make comments about things we don't know about on social platforms, and can't pick up the phone to call a client. Like it's crazy.
Oh my God, you can see what they did on the weekend. You just look at their Instagram, you look at their Facebook, their TikTok. You can find out everything you need to know about them. I think that's half the battle. Is all that information. There's so much of it out there that it becomes kind of creepy now.
Oh, and it's also like, I feel sorry for, you know, that generation that grew up on Instagram, because they haven't learned, not all of them have learned the tools on how to connect with people in a normal way. So they come to interviews, or like, you know, we were talking this morning about the biggest issue at the moment is people just won't turn up for interview because they're afraid to say, hey, I've got another job. We don't mind. We'd rather know. So sales, I think, everything is sales. Me telling my youngest to put his shoes on because, you know, we're going to be late, that is sales, right? Everything you do all the time, you know. So I think if people approach it more like connecting or being curious versus just trying to sell something. Like if I'm talking to a client, 90% of the time it's about them and the footy and their kids, and 10%, you know, if they want to work with me, they'll work with me because they feel an alignment, not because I discounted a rate or, you know, I had a really good script. Like scripts, scripts are not a thing.
Absolutely not. I mean, here's a bit of controversy for you. I started my sales career knocking on doors, selling cable television as a backpacker in Australia 20 odd years ago.
Yeah.
And you know what they taught us? They taught us sex.
Oh my God.
This was the 3-letter acronym.
Okay.
They taught us the 3-letter acronym called sex that we had to do every time we knocked on a door, and that was smile, eye contact, and excitement. And that was the model. I know it's E, it should be E, but the X made it memorable, right? So it was like they said, just use the sex principle: smile, eye contact, and excitement. And even today, if I'm going to have a conversation with someone, I'm going to look you in the eyes and I'm going to be a little bit excited. Yeah. And that for me is almost like presence. It's attention. It's giving you, you know, it's making you're there.
And it's the, but making it genuine. Like I get so excited, like to see clients or meeting people or having this conversation, or every time I interview someone, like I've done over 10,000 interviews, I'm still excited about my next one, right? Like it's just so, I don't know. I see salespeople, like, you know, I'm coaching on scripts or I'm doing this sales course. It's like, You know how you learn sales? You go out and you door knock, or go into a networking thing and try and get 5 numbers and connect with them. Like we talk about 13 touch points in sales. Like you're not going to get it on the first go, even me, right? You need to build the connection first.
No, you don't. No, you don't, Tanya. No, you don't. You have to log on to meetmagic.org, pay your subscription, and book a meeting, and go and have the meeting. That's how you get meetings.
That is
listen, I just want to say thank you for being on here and coming and having a bit of a chat. I think we could sit here all day and keep talking. I know that. I've got a couple of questions that I want to ask you, and they're kind of off the cuff questions, but I just want to give a quick shout out to SnapLogic and James and the team over there. They've been a great customer of ours. Anyone that's got any issues with migrating data or application migrations or cloud migrations, come to me. James and the team, and Melita and the team over at SnapLogic, low code, no code, plug it in, get your shit done really quickly, really easily. But, it's very, very cool. But I've got some questions here on my phone, and when I looked at them this morning, it was like 3:00 in the morning, and they're called Socratic questions.
Okay.
And they're not meant to make you nervous. Okay,
no,
so don't freak out when I ask you these questions. Okay. All right. First one: texting or talking?
Talking.
Chocolate or cheese?
Chocolate.
Say something in an Asian language.
Oh my God, no, I can't.
Do you respect Kanye West?
No.
Favorite suburb in Sydney besides? Oh no, you don't live there. Favorite suburb in the Gold Coast besides the one you live in?
Well, Sydney, Barangaroo for sure. Gold Coast, probably Mount Tamborine.
Nickname your first boyfriend called you?
Tabby.
And finally, what does an executive need to be happy?
Wine. No, I'm kidding. A very good support network.
Yes, I thought that's very true. I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Tanya, what can we do to help RecruitCorp? Is there anything we can do as a business together to help you spread the word? And
no, I think really if you have clients that have had a terrible experience with recruiters or have never used them, just give me a bell. I'm here for it.
Yeah. You know what? I know so many recruiters because I get knocked up all the time.
Yeah.
And I think when we're ready to hire, because I think sometimes you have to attract the right people to your business, and the attracting can only go so far.
Yeah.
And then you got to go and find people and look for people. So I'm going to make you my first port of call when we go looking.
Stop it. It's recorded,
Yeah. Well, you supported me with this podcast, so I'm going to support you. That's how the shit works in the real world.
Look, business, it's all about reciprocity, right? That's
it. Really is.
Genuine reciprocity.
I want you to have a cracking day. I want you to have a great day tomorrow and be the powerful woman that you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm in Sydney in the next couple of months, so we'll catch up.
Beautiful.
Excellent. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.